On February 23, 2025, the results of the German election were announced. The right-wing party led by Mozart won 28.6% of the votes and became the first party in the parliament. The leader of the party led Germany to go through the last golden age and was called the European Iron Man, Merkel. However, this German election is not a return to the Merkel era, because Mozart is a long-term competitor of Merkel in the party. In many policies, the two people's positions are completely opposite, especially on the issue of immigration. Merz has long expressed dissatisfaction with Germany's lenient immigration policy, calling it an extremist party within the party. This time, the German election voting rate reached 82.5%, which is the highest voting rate since the reunification of the two parties. The other party, which has been called an extremist party, won 20.8% of the votes in just 12 years, and has become Germany's second largest political force. And Merz's leadership of the League Party's policy in the election campaign is similar to that of the other party in many respects. Although it has a very positive label due to the other party's choice, Mozart has said that he will not jointly testify to it. But from a policy point of view, this German election is undoubtedly a victory on the right track. However, Germany is now in a crisis. The North Sea pipeline has been blown up, and energy prices continue to rise, causing the German economy to grow for 2 consecutive years. The U.S. Trump administration is eager to withdraw its support for Ukraine, pushing all the pressure on Europe and threatening to increase tariffs on the EU. Will Merz be able to lead Germany out of trouble? It's not just about whether Germany is going to take a more aggressive path again, it's also about where the EU is in the future multi-global world. In 1989, East and West Germany were unified, but it was easy to push the Berlin Wall in physics and difficult to push the Berlin Wall in people's hearts, especially when it was involved in a political power struggle at that time. The largest political party in Germany, the German People's Alliance, also had 2 forces, representing 2 political lines. The German People's Alliance is the German Christian Democratic Alliance, a conservative political party in the middle of Germany. The German Christian Socialist Alliance, together with the Alliance, has long been controlling the German political scene. Among them, Merkel, who was born in East Germany, walked the civilian route, and was a symbol of East-West German technology within the Kremlin. On the other hand, Ferdinand Mozart, who was born in an upper-class family in West Germany, represented the conservative white people who were more mainstream in the Kremlin at the time and were heirs to German traditional elite politics. Like the mainstream values of West Germany at the time, Mozart in his youth was a pacifist with a firm anti-Soviet stance. In terms of values, Mozart adopts a rich white elite color. He believes that German traditional culture should be superior to multiculturalism and opposes open immigration. In the early 2000s, Mozart and Merkel became the twin stars of the Kremlin. Mozart served as chairman of the parliamentary party group, while Merkel became chairman of the Kremlin. In the competition between the two, Merkel's advantage is that the identity tag of the people of East Germany has a political correctness. It helps the Kremlin fight for the people of East Germany, so it is highly appreciated by the German Prime Minister Kohl. But this advantage also brings her a kind of contempt, thinking that she is more based on the identity tag. Everyone gave her a discriminatory title, the little girl of Kohl. On the contrary, Merz is believed to be a more representative of the mainstream spirit of the KMT and a more practical leader. However, an election changed the lives of 2 people. In 2002, the KMT nominated the leader of the KMT, Sylvester Stallone, as the presidential candidate. His white male elite image, closer ties with the United States, and a more liberal economic path are all tied to Merz. Merz himself has also been appointed as the only one to serve as Sylvester Stallone's financial and budget expert during the campaign. But Sylvester Stallone was defeated by the Socialist Party's Slytherin. In electoral politics, a failure in the election means losing everything. This election shock has become an opportunity for Merkel to turn the tables, taking the challenge from the Socialist Party as a reason. Merkel proposed that the leadership of the party and the parliamentary party should be in the hands of one person. In 2002, Merz was forced to hand over the chairmanship of the parliamentary party to Merkel, and lost the qualification to compete for the presidential election. 3 years later, Merkel led the party to win the election, not only solidified her position in the party, but also started the 16-year-old Merkel era. The end of the great event simply withdrew from the political arena in 2009, joined an organization that promotes cross-Atlantic relations between Germany and the United States, the Atlantic Bridge Association, and served as chairman. During this period, Merz also worked for the American investment fund Belaid, and was a member of the supervisory committee of a company related to the United States. On the other hand, Germany began to establish close economic ties with Russia under the leadership of Merkel. In 2011, the Nord Stream 1 pipeline was officially put into use, bringing cheap Russian energy to Germany. However, Merkel's decision not only brought the German economy to a standstill, but also aroused the U.S. vigilance. As a result, the Russian-Ukrainian conflict broke out and Merz returned to power. At the same time, the United States set up the Arab Spring, stirring up the Middle East, and a large number of refugees to the north of Europe. Merkel opened the door and accepted the decision of the refugees, which greatly stimulated the rise of domestic right-wing political forces. But Merkel still relies on the prestige brought by the German economic boom during her term, and firmly controls the leadership of the party and the German political scene. Until 2018, when Merkel announced that she would no longer run for prime minister, after 10 years of silence, she finally saw the opportunity and announced her return to the political scene. After Merkel made a plan to retreat, the heir of the Allied Party was Amin Rashid. He identified himself as the heir of the Merkel route. However, Amin Rashid's ability and reputation are incomparable to Merkel's. During the campaign, there were a series of scandals, such as a flood inspection, a collection of plagiarism, and so on. On the other hand, the consequences of Merkel's immigration policy also began to ferment, causing dissatisfaction among the people. In the end, a general election defeated Merkel's successor for 10 years. In the German general election on September 26, 2021, the Socialist Party became the first party in parliament with 25.7% of the votes. The Socialist Party, the Green Party, and the Liberal Party formed the red light government to come to power. The Allied Party, with 24.1% of the votes, created the worst election result in history. The failed Laschet resigned from the position of party chairman. In the process of the election of the leader of the Allied Party, Mozart, as a long-term opponent of Merkel, has finally begun to show his head. On December 17, 2021, Mozart won 62.1% of the absolute majority in the election of the leaders of the Allied Party, becoming the new leader of the Allied Party. Shortly after the Russian-Ukrainian conflict broke out, German public opinion began to criticize Merkel's energy policy and the pro-Russian route, which led to Germany's excessive dependence on Russia. For Mozart, the more public opinion accused of the failure of the Merkel route, the more stable his position in the Allied Party was. In this context, Morsi began to completely remove the legacy of the Merkel era in the party, and completely separated from Merkel on the route of energy, immigration, diplomacy, etc. At the same time, the extremely right-wing Election Party, which is also known to oppose immigration, is also rising rapidly, and Morsi's stance on the issue of immigration is almost no different from that of the Election Party. In September 2022, when Morsi was interviewed by the TV station and made Ukrainian refugees a beneficiary tourist, the Socialist Party immediately accused Morsk of imitating the opinion of the right-wing Select Party. In November 2023, when Morsk entered TikTok, the first video he posted was to express his view on anti-immigration. German voters, who were concerned about immigration issues, found that Morsk's leaders, the Kremlin, and the right-wing Select Party were not fundamentally different. Through this method, Morsk won the votes of those who opposed illegal immigration and did not want to vote for the Select Party. The difference is that the other party advocated the restoration of economic ties with Russia, while Mozart insisted on a pro-American Atlanticist route. In May 2024, the KGB adopted a new party policy. On the one hand, it emphasized that German culture should be the dominant force in society and called for a significant reduction in immigration. On the other hand, it recognized the safety framework of North America and the United States as the core. It can be said that during the Biden administration, Mozart's anti-immigrant, anti-Russian route was very in line with the popular demands of the people of Germany at the time. During his time as the leader of the opposition party in parliament, Moss repeatedly criticized that the Soviet government's support for Ukraine was not strong enough, and that Russia was too weak, and supported the deployment of medium-range missiles in Germany. In December 2024, as the German economy collapsed during the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, the Socialist Party's polls continued to fall. The Schulz administration was overwhelmed and forced to announce the election in advance, and the Marxist-Leninist Party, on the other hand, used its flexible position to attract the disappointed voters to its side, and became the first party in parliament again. However, Trump's policy poses a major threat to Marx's anti-immigrant, anti-Russian route. During the U.S. election, Marx said that Germany should be prepared to deal with Trump's victory and stop aid to Ukraine for the United States. But perhaps Marx did not expect that the Trump administration will be so quick to abandon Ukraine and restart relations with Russia. Trump's approach is equivalent to publicly announcing that Europe has completely broken up its security package to the United States and is used to the end of the Sino-US route, and how it will deal with this major crisis. On January 29, 2025, Merkel, who had not made a public appearance for a long time, suddenly broke out. She told Merkel that she was leading the Allied Party to commit a fatal mistake. The reason is that Merkel's immigration flow restriction law was passed under the support of the other party. Although this vote itself is not restrictive, it is the first time that the majority of the other party's bills have been passed in the German parliament. Prior to this, there was a long-term consensus in the German political world that never cooperated with the right-wing parties that were labeled as extremists. This consensus was called the firewall. Morse once said that in any vote you can't get a majority by accident or by choice. However, on January 22, the Aschaffenburg city center attacked the Children's World, which raised a wave of resentment among the German people against immigrants. 2 days later, Morse submitted an immigration entry restriction law to the federal hospital and gained the support of the far-right party. The bill has become a landmark for the far-right party to gain mainstream legitimacy. Germany has entered a new era. On the day of the vote, many senior party members announced their opposition to the coalition party's internal turmoil. The protest against Merz violated political taboos and was unforgivable. However, Merz did not regret his actions. This time Merkel has suppressed politicians for decades, and there seems to be a fire in her heart. Her purpose is also very simple: to fight for votes in the hands of the electors, and to break the taboo for it. Merkel even asked the party members to publicly express their loyalty and support their own approach. Since the re-emergence of politics, Merz has been trying to transform the Secrecy Alliance in a groundbreaking way. His key Secrecy Alliance 2030 agenda proposes at least 2% economic growth per year. In an increasingly complex international situation, this is considered an extremely challenging goal. However, for Merz, the greater crisis comes from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. The many political figures under the Trump administration, including U.S. Secretary of State Musk and Vice President Pence, have clearly expressed their support for another party's choice. On February 14, 2025, U.S. Vice President Pence attended a meeting in Munich. After that, Wannsee did not meet with German Prime Minister Schulz as usual, but had a meeting with the leader of the party, Whittle. At this time, there were only less than 10 days left before the German election. The next day, Mozart announced that the relationship between Germany and the West had broken. The German government under his leadership will take responsibility for its own security. In an interview, Moss even said that he plans to bypass the United States and make a joint contribution to the two countries, and build up Europe's own deterrent force. Whether this idea is realistic or not, at least in terms of expression, Moss has shown a tough side. However, the new cabinet has not yet been formed, and the bad news from the Atlantic coast is coming. On February 26, Trump said at the first cabinet meeting that the establishment of the EU was to destroy the United States, and threatened to increase tariffs on the EU by 25%. 2 days later, Trump and Zelensky had an impolite argument in front of the media, which accelerated the process of the United States withdrawing from Ukraine, and the responsibility for supporting Ukraine fell on Europe. At present, the coalition party has begun a joint blockade negotiation with the Socialist Party. On the most important issue of national defense, the two parties are planning to establish a national defense expenditure fund of 200 billion euros. However, this plan needs to get more than 2/3 of the votes from the German parliament, and the anti-war German party has 152 seats, and the left party has 64 seats, which is more than 1/3 of the total. In the face of internal and external threats, the new government led by Mozart wants to lead Germany out of the crisis. On the surface, toughness is far from enough, but it requires a strong ability to break through and political skills. It's even a decisive force that breaks through the city and doesn't hesitate to bear the name. In this respect, compared with Merkel, who loves feathers too much, Mozart has shown a certain determination. And history will not stop because of an accident. If Mozart fails, there will naturally be more radical politicians on stage to push Germany to the right all the way.